In a galaxy far, far away, there was a kid from Corellia who wanted to fly among the stars. This is the tale of Solo, a Star Wars story. You can read along with me in your book. You'll know it's time to turn the page when you hear this sound. Let's begin now. Han zoomed through the streets of Corellia in a stolen speeder. For too long, he had served the evil White Worms, a gang that used local scrum rat kids to do its dirty work. But Han had had enough of barely scraping by. He wanted to be free. He couldn't leave without his best friend Kira, so he raced back to the den of the White Worms to find her.
What, are we going somewhere?
Kira, you always said one day we're gonna get out of here. This is it.
There was no time to waste. But Lady Proxima, a gigantic alien and the leader of the White Worms, knew Han was up to something. From her dark, watery lair, deep inside the den of the White Worms, she sent her guards after him and Kira.
There must be consequences for disobedience, or else you never learn.
Han explained his plan to Kira as they raced through the shipyards of Corellia in the stolen speeder.
There's a starliner leaving from Coronet Spaceport. We're gonna be on it. We bribe our way through the checkpoint and we're free.
Kira couldn't wait to get off the planet.
We can get our own ship. We won't have to take orders or be kicked around by anyone.
Suddenly, one of Lady Proxima's guards, Moloch, roared up behind them in his own heavy land speeder. His deadly hounds growled inside. Han was an excellent pilot, though, and he soon outmaneuvered Moloch. Han and Kira ducked into the spaceport and bribed an officer with a vial of coaxium, an incredibly valuable form of fuel that Han had stolen from Lady Proxima.
Let us through, it's all yours.
Han was able to pass through to where the ships were boarding, but before Kira could join him, White Worm guards grabbed her, and a heavy grate fell between the two friends. Han pounded on the grate, but Kira just yelled at Han to leave. She couldn't escape, but he could.
Yeah, I'll come back! I'll come back!
Years passed, but Han never forgot Kira. He had joined the Empire to get off Corellia and become a pilot. Things hadn't gone as Han planned, though, and he was stuck as a mud trooper on the war-torn planet of Mimban. But when Han met a strange group of smugglers disguised as Imperial soldiers, he saw his chance to escape. Han tried to convince their leader, Tobias Beckett, to let him join the crew.
I got kicked out of the Imperial Academy for having a mind of my own, but I'm a great pilot, and I got to get home.
The smuggler turned Han in instead.
Lieutenant, we have apprehended a deserter. Take him.
The officer had Han thrown into a pit.
Feed him to the beast.
Han was shocked to see that the beast was actually a large, muddy, angry Wookiee named Chewbacca.
Oh, hey, big fella.
Fortunately, Chewbacca had no interest in eating Han. He wanted to be free, too. So Han and Chewbacca worked together to break a post that was holding up the roof of the pit. The pit caved in, and Han and Chewbacca escaped. Han saw Beckett and his crew taking off in a stolen AT hauler, so they raced after the ship and climbed on board. Beckett's crew landed on a mountainous planet called Vandor, where they were planning to steal a huge payload of coaxium from an Imperial train called a conveyex. A gruff human named Val was not happy with Beckett about Han and Chewbacca.
Our whole future depends on this one school, and you bring in amateurs.
Han preferred the easygoing four-armed alien named Rio, who had been in disguise as a masked mud trooper on Mimban to blend in.
How do they breathe in these suits? It's so stuffy. No wonder they're such lousy pilots. You can't turn your head, you can't breathe, you can't hear each other.
The next day, Rio flew the AT hauler low over the conveyex to drop off the crew.
Starting the clock, jamming their signal, 9.6 in the bridge. Let's find out how good we really are, folks.
Han, Chewbacca, and Beckett needed to attach cables from the AT hauler to the train car that held the coaxium and separate it from the rest of the conveyex while Val planted detonators on a bridge nearby. The train twisted as it weaved through the mountains. The smugglers had to hold on tight to avoid falling off. Han even saved Chewbacca during a particularly dangerous turn.
All right! Little close there, buddy!
Suddenly, a group of masked warriors appeared on the horizon. Rio explained to Han over the comm that it was Beckett's nemesis, Enfys Nest, and the Cloud Riders.
Marauders, pirates, come to snake the score from under us.
Enfys Nest directed the Cloud Riders to attach their own cables to the train car.
Ready your harpoons. Move in.
But Beckett refused to go down without a fight, so he battled Enfys on top of the conveyex. Chewbacca managed to separate the coaxium car from the rest of the train, but they were all heading toward a huge mountain, and the train car was being pulled in different directions. Han had climbed back up to the cockpit to help Rio pilot the ship, and he knew they were in trouble.
We're too close, I gotta release.
Beckett urged Han to hold steady.
Don't you do it! They'll let go! You fly straight!
But Han had no choice. He had to release the AT hauler's cables from the payload to pull the ship and Beckett and Chewbacca safely over the mountain. The Cloud Riders had to do the same, so the train car full of precious coaxium exploded against the mountainside. Beckett was furious with Han.
You have any idea what you've done? We were not stealing for ourselves. We were hired by Crimson Dawn.
He had promised the coaxium to Dryden Voss, a dangerous crime lord from a powerful gang. Val and Rio hadn't made it through the heist, and Han and Chewbacca weren't going to let Beckett face the consequences alone. So they went with him to meet Dryden on his luxurious space yacht. The gangster was furious until Han suggested they find another payload of coaxium to steal. Dryden agreed to give Beckett and his crew one last chance, with a warning.
Test me one more time, you'll see what happens.
He also insisted on sending his second-in-command along for the mission. It was Kira. Han was surprised to see his old friend again.
What are you doing here?
I work here. What's your excuse?
They would need a fast ship for their mission to Kessel, where they would steal the coaxium, and Kira already had one in mind.
It's a long shot, but it's worth a try. He's the best smuggler around.
The smuggler was Lando Calrissian, a charming young gambler.
Kira, you look phenomenal, as always. What are you doing with Harry and the boy?
Lando agreed to the mission for the right price, and then informed his droid L337 about their new job.
We're taking them to Kessel.
L337 had a mind of her own.
How are we?
Then Lando led the crew to a sleek freighter outside.
My pride and joy. The Millennium Falcon.
Kessel was run by the dangerous Pike Syndicate and was located in the middle of a deadly maelstrom. L3 charted a safe course for the Falcon that wound around the vortex, rather than taking the far riskier route known as the Kessel Run, which cut right through it.
All right, course to Kessel is set. Plugging coordinates in now. Just keep your pinky on the yoke and try not to mess anything up.
When the ship touched down on the spice-covered planet, Kira emerged and pretended to offer Han and Chewbacca as laborers to a Pike overseer.
Your spice? For our hard-working slaves, I brought you a sample.
But once inside the mine, Kira and Beckett quickly disarmed the Pike, so L3 could tap into the computer system and direct Han and Chewbacca to where the unrefined coaxium was held.
Down 2 levels, then left, then right, then it's a third left.
Once inside the vault, Kira warned Han about the coaxium.
Each canister should be equipped with a thermal display. If the internal temperature reaches below 35 standard, then the coaxium will destabilize and explode.
Han was struggling to get one of the canisters onto a cart.
I get it, guys. It's dangerous.
Beckett was eager for Han to finish the job.
Great. Only 11 more. 11?
Once all 12 canisters had been loaded onto the cart, Han and Chewbacca pushed them out of the mine and toward the Falcon. Suddenly, chaos erupted in the form of an uprising among the droid workers and the mine laborers, including a number of Wookiees. Lando had a feeling L3 was involved.
L3, what did you do?
L3 hated seeing droids being used against their will and had released the droid workers, who had in turn released the laborers. A battle raged between the laborers and the pikes around the Falcon as Han and Chewbacca finished loading the coaxium. Kira knew time was running out.
We've got to get out of here!
Both Lando and L3 had been hurt during the battle.
Lando, what's happening to me?
Han jumped in the cockpit, but when they took off from the planet, a gigantic Imperial Star Destroyer suddenly blocked their path. Lando had had his fair share of run-ins with the Empire and warned the rest of the crew as the Falcon jostled this way and that.
Usually in situations like this, I like to turn around in the opposite direction.
Han decided that they would do just that and make the dangerous Kessel run.
I got a really good feeling about this.
Lando was doubtful.
Spectacular way of killing us all. I'll give you that.
Han swerved away from the Star Destroyer, while Beckett hopped in the gunner seat to take out the Imperial ties that were following them. Han connected with Beckett over the comm.
They still on us?
Beckett bellowed back from the gunner seat.
Like a Gingerson's pelt.
Han was confused.
I don't know what that means.
Beckett answered again.
They're on us like rash snow on the Kylan.
Han still didn't understand.
What are they or aren't they?
The Falcon shook from a blast, and Han knew the answer. When blocks of frozen carbon started crashing down all around them, and they still had one tie on their tail, Han thought fast and gave orders to Chewbacca, his new co-pilot.
Drop the landing gear. When I tell you, flood the intake and sweep to the Vilax.
Suddenly, the Falcon was skimming across a huge block of carbon on its landing gear. Carbon frost sprayed up behind it, taking out the final tie. Meanwhile, Lando and Kira worked to save L3 and themselves by connecting her to the mainframe of the ship so she could help navigate them out of the maelstrom.
She's interfacing. She's part of the ship now.
Suddenly, the Falcon faced a hungry, colossal creature and a black hole. It seemed as though the crew was out of luck, but Han had an idea. Lando saw what he was about to do and tried to stop him.
Well, what are you doing? That's the escape pod.
Han deployed the pod from the front of the Falcon toward the black hole. Everyone watched as the creature turned toward the smaller ship and got sucked into the void instead of the Falcon. Han smirked as he jumped the Falcon to the safety of hyperspace. Han had done it. He had flown the Kessel Run in record time and landed the Falcon on the sandy dunes of Savareen so they could refine the coaxium for Dryden Voss. Lando was not pleased with Han, though.
I hate you.
Han knew why. The Falcon had taken quite a beating and no longer looked like Lando's pristine ship. But they had bigger things to worry about. Enfys Nest had arrived.
Must have known you'd see me again.
Lando quickly took off in the Falcon, leaving Han, Kira, Beckett, and Chewbacca to fend for themselves. This time, however, Enfys didn't want to fight. Instead, the warrior removed their mask. To reveal the face of a young human. The girl ordered her Cloud Riders to do the same, and Han was shocked to see the faces of humans and aliens from all different planets. Enfys explained that she came from a long line of women who had fought to protect the galaxy, and she needed the coaxium to help those in need.
Crimson Dawn will use their profits from the coaxium you stole to tyrannize system after system, in league with the Empire.
Han and Kira wanted to help her, but Beckett did not. So he said goodbye to Han and left.
By some miracle you make it out of here, find me on Tatooine.
Han, Chewbacca, and Kira came up with a plan to trick Dryden with a case full of vials of fake coaxium so they could give the real coaxium to Enfys. But when they boarded Dryden's yacht, the gangster already knew about their plan. Han thought Kira had betrayed his trust.
Dryden, I don't know what you're thinking or what Kira may have told you. I would never.
But it wasn't Kira who had warned Dryden. It was Beckett. He appeared blaster drawn and took control of the room. Beckett saw the shock on Han's face.
You weren't paying attention. I told you don't trust anybody.
Then something in the older man softened.
I am sorry, kid.
But Beckett's apology didn't change anything. He had returned to score the real coaxium for himself, and he insisted on taking Chewbacca with him.
Big stuff, you're coming with me.
As soon as Beckett left with Chewbacca and the coaxium, Kira and Dryden leapt into action, battling each other. Han was surprised to see that his old friend was actually a deadly fighter. Dryden had trained Kira in the ways of the gang.
Once you're a part of Crimson Dawn, you can't leave.
But Kira was stronger than Dryden, and she soon overpowered him.
It's what I was taught. Find your opponent's weakness and use it. And today, I'm yours.
Kira urged Han to go after Beckett.
Go and save Chewbacca. He needs you.
She would steal some treasures from Dryden's yacht and then meet up with him.
If we give all the coaxium to Enfys, we're going to need something to buy our ship with. Go, I'm right behind you.
But after Han left, Kira contacted the secret leader of Crimson Dawn, the deadly warrior Maul, and lied to him about Dryden's death.
I regret to inform you that Dryden Voss is dead. Murdered by the thief he hired to steal the coaxium shipment, his friend, Tobias Beckett.
Maul told Kira to return to him at once in Dryden's yacht.
Bring the ship and come to me on Dathomir, and you and I will then decide what to do about the traitor Beckett and his accomplices.
Kira did not hesitate. She knew her place in Crimson Dawn.
I'm on my way.
When Han caught up to Beckett, the old smuggler didn't even seem surprised.
You're relentless, I'll give you that.
Han knew it was no use trying to convince Beckett to do the right thing. Beckett had proven that he was not trustworthy. He had even said it himself. Never trust anybody. Han had no choice but to defeat Beckett to save Chewbacca and retrieve the coaxium for Enfys. But then Han heard the roar of engines overhead. He turned to see Kira flying away in Dryden's ship. He had known he couldn't trust Beckett, but he had thought he could still trust Kira. A furry hand settled on Han's shoulder. At least he could still trust Chewbacca. Han and Chewbacca gave Enfys the coaxium. Enfys looked down at the fuel.
Do you know what that really is?
Han winced.
Yeah, about 60 million credits worth of refined coaxium.
Enfys shook her head.
No. It's the blood that brings life to something new. A rebellion.
As a thank you, Enfys gave Han one of the vials. He handed it to Chewbacca.
Don't lose that.
Han knew just what they would do with it. Han and Chewbacca arrived at a gambling den on a remote jungle planet. They had found Lando Calrissian.
And you're alive!
Han used the coaxium from Enfys to play Lando in a game of sabacc to win the Millennium Falcon.
You really have a bat for the Falcon, don't you?
Han smiled.
It's mutual, trust me. She belongs with me. Han Solo was finally free.
He settled into the cockpit of the Falcon with Chewbacca by his side.
Beckett said he heard about this very big gangster putting together a job.
Chewie groaned.
No, I'm telling you, it's gonna be great. When have I ever steered you wrong?
Han and Chewbacca were ready for whatever adventures might come their way.